Shabbat Shalom, my friends, and Chag Sameach, and Moadim L'Simcha. Saturday, September 25th is Shabbat Chol HaMoed Sukkot, the Sabbath that falls on the intermediate day of the festival of Sukkot. The proper greeting that we should extend to each other during the season actually depends upon when we meet somebody. We meet them on the opening and closing days of Sukkot. Those days are Chag. They're full festival days. So we say Chag Sameach. If we meet them during the intermediate days in between the two festival days, we say Moadim L'Simcha. And on Shabbat, well, Shabbat Shalom always works. Simple, right? Not exactly. Hold on tight. Because just as the 7 days of Sukkot end, we will welcome Shmini Atzeret, the 8th day of solemn assembly. Now, Shmini Atzeret can be experienced by us as an add-on, an extension to Sukkot, even though we no longer are required to eat in our Sukkot on Shmini Atzeret. But Shmini Atzeret is actually a separate Chag all by itself. So in the diaspora, if we are conservative or Orthodox Jews, would expect to celebrate Shmini Atzeret for 2 days. Now, what do we call the second day of Shmini Atzeret? Simchat Torah. Interesting, right? We call that second day Simchat Torah. Reform Jews who generally do not add on that second day of the festival will find in our new prayer books a listing that says Shmini Atzeret / Simchat Torah to be observed on the very same day. Thank God. Thank God for published, easy to decipher Hebrew calendars. Living a Jewish life can be very complicated. Now, with no apologies whatsoever, I am not going to speak with you today about the special selection from the Torah that is read every year on Shabbat Chol HaMoed Sukkot, like this year. Every time, the same texts are read, Exodus 33:12 to 34:26, plus Numbers 29:23 to 28. Torah texts that refer to the festival. But what don't we read? Think about it. Last week, we read the second last Sedra in the Torah, the penultimate Sedra. Next Shabbat, we will read the beginning of Genesis Breshit, the first Sedra of the Torah. One Sedra. Just one Sedra in the entire Torah, the 54th Sedra of a 54, count them, numbered Sedras in the Torah. That Sedra, V'zot HaBracha, never gets a Shabbat of its own. That's bothered me. I feel sorry for V'zot HaBracha. V'zot HaBracha is Deuteronomy 33:1 to 34:12. Now, it isn't that we never read V'zot HaBracha. Of course we read it. On Simchat Torah, we call up a Chatan Torah, a bridegroom of the Torah, to bless the reading of the last verses of the last Sedra of the Torah, V'zot HaBracha, the last verses. Then we call up Chatan Breshit, the bridegroom of Breshit, to launch us once again into the cycle of Torah readings. But today, just because I feel sorry for V'zot HaBracha, I'd like to probe it just a bit more deeply. First of all, we immediately notice that the Sedra in its contents is ideal for its role on Simchat Torah. Moses is in the last hour of his life. He offers a brief blessing to each of the tribes of Israel. He lifts the people's hearts one more time. He then climbs Har Nevo, Mount Nebo, by himself and is afforded sweeping views of the central area of the Promised Land. And then, as ordained by God in this last, number 54, Sedra, Moses dies. Where Moses is buried, no one knows. The people mourn for Shloshim, for 30 days. And then Joshua in the Sedra steps forward as Moses' successor, and the next stage of our people's life is launched as they prepare to enter the land. Notice, there is no break here in the upward spiral of our people's journey into history. An ending melds into a beginning. A leader to whom no one else could ever be compared is no more. His like will never arise again. A 40-year wandering from slavery to freedom has been completed. Its memory will shape all of our people's future dreams. A new leader is now in place, a person suitable for the times. And new challenges await us as the meaning of what we have experienced slowly, ever so slowly, becomes clear to us. We learn that this journey is greater than any of its individual participants, and that journey seamlessly continues in this, the last Sedra of the Torah. And we will finish the cycle of Torah readings. We will dance and we will sing and we will begin anew. But beginning anew here is not the same as repeat. The Torah we will read and study together in the coming months will not be identical to the Torah we have already read and studied, not because the text ever changes, because we, the readers, are not the same as we were just a year ago. So when we say at the end, Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek, let us be strong, let us be strong, let us strengthen one another, we really mean it. We spiral forward into our future, and we experience in the festival and in the Torah reading an ending that melds into a new beginning. And there's more. Vayamacham Moshe Eved Adonai. And so Moses, the servant of God, died there. Simply phrased. But so much is left unsaid. We have been with Moses since he was a proverbial babe in the basket. He was raised in Pharaoh's house, becoming self-aware, coming to affirm his identity. His flight from Egypt, the encounter at the burning bush that sent him to the throne of Pharaoh to deliver the message of liberation. 40 years of struggle, 40 years of unparalleled glory, 40 years of frustration, 40 years in which the spiritual transformation of the world was launched. Moses died, our Sedra. But who was Moses? We have little that opens up for us this man's inner life. Oh, we can list the outer appearances, the times of courage and humility, anger, fear, determination. We can list the biographical high points. But who was Moses? He was Ish. He was a man, a human being, a person. He wasn't a god or the offspring of a god. Moses was flawed. He could be rash. He could appear to be unfeeling. He was married, and he was a father. Yet we know nothing about his marriage and nothing about his relationship with his sons. He was a brother who shared most of the 40 years with his brother and sister, and yet we know very little about his personal relationships with Miriam and with Aaron. We have his words, and his words shine some light into the unknown. As he stood before the burning bush, Moses wanted God to know of his weaknesses. It was more than humility, it was integrity. When Miriam was stricken with illness, he prayed swiftly and powerfully for her healing, and yet, when Aaron was bereaved, when 2 of his sons died, Moses gave great advice, practical advice. But we would look in vain for any signs of empathy. When God was totally fed up with the Israelites, Moses, like Abraham before him, stood up, rose up in his people's defense against Adonai Elohim. Jonathan Sacks describes Moses as a man who came so close to utter despair, but who nevertheless left us with a message of unshakable hope. Moses was a man who never lived to see his dreams fulfilled, but who achieved greatness by allowing the presence of God to become a living reality for an immortal people. Vayamat sham Moshe Eved Adonai. And so did Moses, the servant of God, die there. And the people wept, and they mourned, and they moved forward. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach, Moadim L'Simcha, and next week, Breshit.